Okay, hello and welcome to another episode of SoFly. This is a special episode of SoFly, of course, because we are on location. It is July 2nd. It's the long weekend. That's kind of fun. And we're actually here in the Margaree Valley. That's right. July is salmon month, or Nova Scotia month, I should say. Margaree month, something like that. But yeah, we're in the Margaree Valley. Of course, my name is Aldo, and I've got my co-host Yilma.
Hello.
Jesus. We're here with two very special friends who have been on the podcast before. We've got Kate and Scotty Sherin. Kate and Scott are, if you've listened to the podcast with them before, great. If you haven't, you should, because that's all about their fly fishing life, and we've got their bios and backgrounds, so we're not going to get into that. But really quickly, camera. Yeah, Kate and Scott are passionate anglers. They're guides. They live in Nova Scotia and Lunenburg. We, of course, are nowhere near there. Kate is now, congratulations, a new member of the board of directors of the Atlantic
Nova Scotia Salmon Association.
Nova Scotia Salmon Association. And Scotty is the VP over at the Le Havre Salmon Association. Of course, Scott, you might see him on Reddington, and you might see Kate on Reddington. They're part of the Reddington Rio team, just like us, and that's how we originally met. They do a lot of work for salmon here, not only at home, closer to home on the Le Havre, but just for salmon ambassadorship, all over the province. Really, they work with the ASF, the hatchery, and of course the people that brought us here, Fish Nova Scotia, which is awesome. So we've been shooting and fishing and exploring the Margaree Valley, of course, in chase of Atlantic salmon, and working with, working for Fish Nova Scotia. So yeah, Kate, Scott, welcome back to the show, and it's so nice to do it on your home turf.
Yay! Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Second podcast this week in 2 days, and shout out to Andrew from Fish Nova Scotia.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for trusting us and bringing us here. It's great. Okay, so I guess what we're going to do on this show is we're going to recap what we've been doing this week. This is actually, we're checking out in an hour. We thought we had till 3 p.m. We've got till 12. Is it 10 now? We've got till 11, so we've got an hour.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's
and
perfect
then
timing.
Yilma and I fly out back to Toronto, sadly, tonight, which is very sad. I'm sad.
We're sad.
We're sad.
It's been a good week, though, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Been an excellent week.
Yeah, you have fun, Yilma?
I had a great time.
Yeah?
And we'll get to that.
Yeah, totally. Maybe first and foremost, since Yilma and I don't really know, where are we and what have we been doing?
We have been salmon fishing on our favorite river, the Margaree, in beautiful Cape Breton, Nova Scotia.
And where's Cape Breton?
It is a little island connected by the Canso Causeway in the north of Nova Scotia.
Right on. And what is the Margaree River?
It's water.
No, Scotty.
It's actually a heritage river, which is pretty cool. So
What does that mean?
Well, I don't know. You're kind of putting me on the spot here, but it's steeped in culture, and people have been salmoning in tradition, and obviously Mi'kmaq people have been fishing it, and it's very culturally significant to them, as well as anglers alike. So it's a really special place, kind of nestled on the Gulf side of Cape Breton, if that makes sense. So the river, actually, the estuary doesn't face the Atlantic Ocean. It's kind of on the other side, on the west side, which is pretty cool. And the headwaters are way up in the highlands, which is really cool as well. So, the river itself changes wildly. You get down low and it's kind of flat, not flat, but you're in a valley and there's pasture land. And as you work your way upriver, quickly becomes, elevation gets a little bit higher, slope of the river kind of increases, river kind of narrows out. Yeah, I think we saw all that this week too, which is pretty
100%.
cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. We took a drive to the coast the other day, and you can really see the river change, because where we are, we're in the upper section of the river. So we're surrounded by mountains in the valley, green, lush, tree-covered valley with misty fog in the mornings. Yeah. It's pretty awesome.
It's like a fortress of mountains.
You said something interesting that I had never really considered. We were driving along the valley, and you're like, this looks like Montana with green trees.
Yeah, it gave me, kind of like Ennis. If anybody's been lucky enough to go to the Ennis River Valley, it reminds me of that a lot because the river changes a lot as you go along. Obviously the Ennis River doesn't dump into the ocean, but it does kind of feel that way, especially when you see all the farmland when you get closer to the coast and like I think is it Shetty Camp?
Correct.
Was one of the towns, which is pretty cool. But we'll get to our trip to the coast soon. I guess really quickly, we've been staying at an Airbnb. It's awesome. We're literally right by the river, like a stone's throw away from one of the pools we've been fishing, which is great. But, there's tons of places to stay up here. Like you can camp. What was that business called?
So a friend of ours owns a really cool campground. It's lower in the river. It's called Live Life Intense. Lee Fraser is his name. He does, guided canoe trips. He rents tubes for people to float down the river. If you want to kind of fishing isn't your thing, you can still experience the Margaree. It's here for everybody. He's got glamping tents, which are really cool. So anyone planning a trip out here, I think that's one of the coolest things. And I know we're going to touch on this later in the show, but just how accessible the river can be. You don't have to come and spend hundreds of dollars on an Airbnb. In fact, Kate and I were, living out of a tent before you guys came. So
we've been salmon bums for a while.
It's embraced.
That's awesome. When did you two first start fishing the Margaree, Kate?
We first started coming up here, I think 2011.
Yeah, 2011 was my first year.
Yeah, and we would our good friend's grandma has a cabin mid-river, and we would go and stay there with him and his grandma. She's 80 something, I think, maybe. Hopefully I'm right. And she and her husband had the cabin for 30, I don't know, so many years. Yeah. So we would go and stay there, look at their photographs and
see all the old flies.
See all the old flies and really got the real salmon fishing experience back then. So it was easy to become hooked.
That's awesome.
I think it's cool because there's so many different, like we talked about this when you asked me about what a heritage river is, but there's so many generations that have accessed this river for, a plethora of different reasons. And it's really cool. I think that the further I come along in my fishing journey, I really gravitate to those stories. I'll find myself standing at a pool or fishing a specific lie because the river does change year to year, and it's changed greatly in the last year from the hurricane. But depending on the substrate of the river, there is bedrock and shale and stuff like that. And those pools never really change. So I'm always like, who else stood, in this exact spot trying to catch a salmon 100 years ago?
Yeah. You feel that history here. It's a romantic place. We've been meeting a lot of people and a lot of people who care about this river. And I think it's been a really special week, which we should probably get into right now.
Yeah.
One thing of note, it's also, if you listen to the Kate and Scott episode, and I think it's Scott's Mitchie's Fishies 3 best fishing memory ever. And of course, that's when he proposed to Kate on this river after catching a salmon. Because he said he would. Or was it if you landed a salmon, Kate?
Yeah, if Kate landed a salmon. Sorry.
And it started as a joke, of course. If I landed a salmon
on a fly rod,
which,
yeah.
Then he would propose.
Kate's ultra competitive for anyone who doesn't know this. So you give her a challenge and she takes it to level 10 instantly. Mm-hmm. But it was great because we fished every waking moment that year, and Kate came really close a couple times and she ended up landing a salmon. It actually wasn't on this river, but we fished this river a lot.
Oh, shit.
No, it's a go.
We fished this river. I wanted it to be on this river. but yeah. I always say we fell in love on this river.
We did.
Yeah.
That's so nice. Okay, yeah. I think right before we get into day one, maybe what makes the Margaree special in terms of let's talk about regulations a bit and set up the whole thing, because the Margaree is catch and release only and fly fishing only, correct?
All of Nova Scotia is catch and release only
for salmon.
For salmon,
right?
So our season changes. This is the cool thing about Nova Scotia is there's a variety of different species and sport fish you can chase. Our general fishing season opens April 1st,
Okay.
And April 1st until about June 1st, we'll say there are some exceptions. Most rivers are open to any type of gear or bait. So once June kind of rolls around is when salmon start kind of staging and getting ready to come into the river. And that's when things kind of tighten down. So, yeah, I mean, it's super accessible. You do have to kind of keep an eye on the regulations. And that's why, a huge shout out to Fish Nova Scotia. They've got an amazing set of resources online that
You can buy your licenses online. We did before we showed up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're also super approachable too. Like I grew up in Ontario and I pinch myself all the time because I think how lucky we are to have the access to the people to make the decisions. So, anyone that comes here that has a question or they're unsure about the regs for a specific part of the river, just pick up the phone and call, the Department of Inland Fisheries and Aquaculture and you'll be sorted out right away.
Right on.
Shouldn't be scary.
It didn't feel scary.
No, I was scared a little bit, but
That's pretty rad. And then, so basically, let's kick this off.
Yeah.
Yilma and I, we woke up super early on the 26th of June.
4 a.m. I got in. Oh, well, I woke up at 4. 20 minutes later, I'm downstairs in an Uber. 5 minutes after that, Aldo's in the truck,
Yeah.
in the Uber.
Yeah.
And then 20 minutes, we're boarding. We're in line to board to head over.
Woo! Yeah. Which was, that's Finn. Oh, yeah, Finn's here too.
Yeah. Finn's my
Kate and
best
Scotty
friend.
He's been keeping us company and chasing salmon around when we've been catching them, which is awesome. But yeah, it was great. We, the flight was super easy. Flying to Halifax, we scooped up the car from the airport.
It was easy. It was like this.
Yeah, it was
Super
like
quick.
that. And we got the car, which was kind of hilarious. It's a Dodge Durango, which has a special meaning for SoFly because
it was our first rental vehicle on our way to Temagami. It's like our first trip ever, SoFly.
I know it's a weird small thing, and the one that we have has blacked out rims.
Yeah, we
look like drug dealers.
We had the same. We just didn't have the Hemi, but yeah, we look like drug dealers.
whenever you start that thing, it sounds like a race car.
Yeah,
I know, it's pretty funny. I was like, this is going to be.
And it's in eco mode.
That's like this is going to be a bit out of place, but that's okay. We got in the car and then we got some breakfast right away.
And what's the truck stop called? Because that was
Big
delicious.
Stop.
Oh, the Big Stop was good.
I don't think that's what the restaurant's called, but it's just called the Big Stop.
Big Stop, yeah.
And then we went up to and then we started the drive to Cape Breton. How was that drive, Yelma?
Easy peasy, no traffic. It was lovely, lots of scenery, lush.
It was raining when we arrived.
Yeah, it was raining.
Overcast, so it was it was a nice feeling
it was
because
great.
we left
it
it
was
very
fishy.
hot.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
we left a very hot Toronto.
Yeah, we did, and to feel to get that refreshing feeling, and to know that possibly the rain could bring in some salmon was also a good feeling.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we were pretty stoked on the drive up.
Yeah.
I've never been here. You've never been here.
Nope.
We've both been to Nova Scotia before, but never up here. And what is it when you drive into Cape Breton? What's that bridge called?
The Canso Causeway.
The Canso Causeway, and you drive
Welcome to
underneath.
Cape Breton.
Yeah,
Yes.
the Welcome to Cape Breton sign. I was like,
We filmed it twice.
I was like, shit, I missed it.
Turned around, came back.
Yeah, but that was a cool feeling. I forgot about how much history there is here. The Cabot Trail, Alexander Graham Bell, of course, all the Mi'kmaq history and recent history, the hurricane. Like, a lot happens in Cape Breton.
Yes.
And-
Movies.
Sorry?
Movies.
Like what?
I don't know. They're shot.
Movies.
Wasn't the Hobbit shot part of the Hobbit shot here?
I thought he did that all in New Zealand. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I don't know.
Okay, sorry.
So we keep driving up and movies. Like what? I don't know. So we drove up.
I got caught off guard.
Picked up some groceries on the way, and then I had been like craving. I was like, we got to get some fresh seafood, and I was like, yeah. I was like, anything, oysters, shrimp, I don't care. We had gotten into. We're actually not that far from the Airbnb at this point, about an hour's drive, and we happened upon a lobster shack by the side of the road, actually right beside a cannabis store, which was awesome because we got two birds stoned at once.
Whoa.
Oh, I'm just kidding. We didn't get high and drive, but we did buy weed. And it's legal in Canada, all right, you friggin' Americans. And then we got some lobster, and that was awesome. Hey, Oma?
Yeah. It was great.
Yeah, it was like caught that day.
It was just
cooked right in front of us.
Yeah, I've never had fresh lobster like that before. Usually it's
Weeks old.
Red
yeah.
lobster?
Frozen.
Yeah, and overly
shrimp
seasoned
feast?
and this was just boiled and we ate it and it tasted amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, it was nothing but the lobster.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was great.
It was
Doesn't
awesome.
need any extra.
No, it doesn't.
Seasoning is the juice.
Yeah.
You should see Kate eat a lobster. You will never look at her the same way again. I didn't know it was possible to shotgun lobster juice, but that is a thing.
Oh
You
my God.
pull the claw back and you just...
I'm gonna reuse that soundbite over
in my
again. Yeah, and then we picked up all the stuff, and then we got to the Airbnb and we pulled in, and I was like, oh my God, the mountains are right in our backyard, and there's a fire pit, and then this is Yilma's first time meeting Kate and Scott IRL.
Yeah, in person. Yeah, in IRL. Yeah.
It's funny that I feel like we'd known each other.
Yeah, for sure. Same.
It's good.
Yeah.
Oh.
I like you even more.
Thanks, man. Ditto.
We did the regular thing where we showed up and we kind of got dialed right away because because fishing was going to happen early. So we did the thing where we like frig around with the gear and have some beers and chit chat and
Put our go boxes together or fly.
started
go
looking at
boxes.
flies and
That happens every time you come up here. I don't think I've ever... You do the drive, and for us, it's about 4.5 hours from Lunenburg. And you have every intention of going to bed early because there's this weird salmon game you have to play where, it's who can wake up the earliest, get their coffee in their to-go mug, and get to the river, because it is the first person that gets to the pool. You do cycle pools here. So the first person that gets to the parking lot gets first pass through the pool, and that's pretty coveted. So every time I come here, I've, all the intentions of going to bed early, and I just get absorbed into flies
and leaders.
Mm-hmm. Mostly flies. You look at them and you're like, I think this is the one. And you just kind of play, but
Yeah, so we got all rigged, and it is that kind of game. And plus, you're so excited, and Mitch, and from our previous episode, Mitchell Roberts showed up, and we were all shooting the shit, getting all acquainted, and looking at each other's flies, and just like getting ready for the next day's fishing. And yeah, that was kind of our program. We would be waking up. We were waking up at around 5.
yeah, 4:45.
Because you can't fish until 6,
Correct.
right? You're not allowed to fish until 6.
It's one of the only rivers in Nova Scotia that actually has that regulation. So you cannot put a fly in the water.
Gentleman's hour.
And lady?
Ladies' hour.
It's also very old school here.
It's kind of cool though.
Gentleman's.
Yeah, you can't put a fly in the water until 6 a.m. So what people will do is they will get up early, bring a coffee, or Kate and I actually have a jet boil and stuff, and we'll go make coffee on the side of the river. And it's actually one of my favorite times because the sun's still really low in the sky, super peaceful, quiet, usually no wind, and you can just kind of exist. And usually there's salmon showing at that hour. They kind of like those low light times, so. It's a really special time, and it's a bit of an unwritten rule. So anyone that comes here, if you see someone in the parking lot or sitting on a bench, just go and talk to them because there is a little bit of etiquette involved, and you don't want to just jump in there and start fishing because, it's a quick way to step on some toes. Mm-hmm. But people are pretty friendly as long as you
Respect.
or just be just. If you're friendly, that will be reciprocated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone's extraordinarily friendly here.
Yeah.
Kate, what is cycling pools? What does that mean? What's some of the Margaree etiquette? Break it down for us, Kate.
So first person to the pool gets first pass, meaning you start at the top of the pool, do a cast, 2 steps down, cast, swing, 2 steps down. And then once you get to a satisfactory point, the next person gets in behind you, and you just kind of keep that rotation going. And it's good because you cover all of the pool that way. You're like fishing it efficiently, but also it gives everyone a chance to get in the water, and you just keep cycling like that. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it.
And we're fishing barbless here?
Fishing barbless, single barbless. Well, yeah, single barbless flies.
Single means one shank.
One shank.
Trebles are not legal. Doubles are fine. but make sure those barbs are pinched because and no weight. So
No weight,
no
yes.
cone heads, no wrapped, flies, nothing like that. And sinking lines are permitted. Just again, one of the unwritten rules of the Margaree, just be super conscious. Sink tips are kind of frowned upon in the summer.
Okay.
A little more accepted in the fall when you're fishing like big marabou flies. They kind of need to get down a little bit more when the water's a little bit colder. But salmon are very willing participants to come to a fly. If they see it and they want it, they'll come for it. That's one of the cool things about Cape Breton and the Margaree is you can actually hook a salmon on a dry fly.
Yeah.
That was Yoma's mission.
Yeah, it was my mission for 3 days, and we
I
we'll get to
respected that. You were, yeah.
I like top water a lot.
Yeah.
It's the bass in me.
Dry or die.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like we're
Try it
jumping. We haven't even got to day one yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so we wake up. It's day one. Good transition. It's good.
Yeah,
we
we
wake
need that.
up. It's day one. We wake up early. I think Yoma and I are on very little sleep at this point because we've been working so much, looking forward to this trip, and we're like getting everything ready and getting all excited and driving to the river, and then we had a nice walk to the river, and we walked to our first pool, and we're like walking through this lush forest. We're like it's
Fern
awesome.
Gully.
It's like
You said Fern Gully twice.
it was a lot like Fern Gully. There's a lot of ferns.
Yeah.
And then we see the river for the first time. What are your first impressions of the river Yilma?
Vast. Beautiful. I don't know. Like it's
Because you've never seen it. You've never been Atlantic salmon fishing before.
No, never. I don't know. It just looked like a classic salmon fishery. Like big, wide river, long, meandering curves and S shapes and pools and riffles and just everything you want. And it just looked very salmon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, you feel all cozy because we're upriver, so we're like, in the valley. So
Yeah.
it's like we're all like nestled in, but between two mountains, and this
Yep.
river is cutting.
It's like a fortress. It really is. Like these mountains just cover you. It's our protective layer, shield.
There's benches at every pool too, so that was
Yeah, that's cool. Sorry to interrupt.
Make a little fire, and we started swinging through. Yeah, we were fishing two ways. We had our spey rods for wider sections of the river, and obviously for our wet flies, and then we had our single hand rods, predominantly for bombers, but also for.
Yeah. I hardly used my double handed a couple times. Wait, I just want to touch on the benches. That was cool.
Yeah, hats
Fuck the
off.
fishing. How about the benches?
Seriously, like a shout out needs to go to the Margaree Salmon Association because that's on them. They've got
Oh yeah.
So they go around at the beginning of the season and put all those benches out,
Trimming
and then
the trails.
trimming the trails. That's the
Yeah.
other thing too, is like how accessible the river is. You can actually go to the Margaree Salmon Museum, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and for $1 or $2, you can buy a map which shows you more or less where all the pools are. It doesn't give you detailed instructions on how to.
Yeah, it's not like cast here, but it's like here's
Yeah.
where you can park.
Yeah.
This is where you walk.
Yep.
They all have names, which I love. It's like it's the
That's
same in the
great.
Bonaventure and stuff. It's
Totally.
like such a
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just seems like, okay, this is the place you fish,
Yeah.
and I just love it.
And when in doubt, like it is a well-traveled river. So like, when I getting around is kind of intimidating in most places, and you not that hard to get lost. But I find here, if you follow like a boot path, you're gonna end up at a fishing spot
or back of your car,
or back of your car.
depending on which way you're going. Yeah, those first couple passes
and-
were sweet.
Yeah,
Like,
very sweet. Yeah, and
super weird. So we're swinging through, and like we all mentioned, it's cool. It's like, we had the pool to ourselves at the beginning of the day. That's not always the case. But you can share pools pretty easily because of your casting, stepping down, and walking through, and everyone's taking their turn, and it becomes like this little social thing where you're sitting at the bench. Maybe you start a fire. There's fire pits at most of the benches, and everyone's sharing snacks, and there's this voice coming out of the woods, and all I hear is, "Hey, are you Aldo?" And I was like, first of all, I'm on 2 hours of sleep. It's like 7 a.m. I'm like, what? I was like, no, there's no. And it actually turns out we met Susan and Susie. Susan's from Ontario, knows Rob Sesta from Drift Outfitters, and was like, yeah, I heard you're on the river, and how hilarious is that? She lives in Bellefountain, right by the Credit River, and we shared the pool with them that morning, and they're super cool.
They are super
super
cool.
cool.
So Susie, not Susan, but Susie, I've heard about her for years, but never met her because she's really good friends with our friend's grandmother, who Kate spoke about earlier. So it was really cool. Instantly had that connection. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, you know, it's such a small world, but even a smaller community. Yeah.
Small salmon world.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And then, so yeah, we spent the morning swinging. We didn't, and learning, you know, how to fish a bomber, which like, how do you fish a bomber?
Yeah.
It's not exactly like a dry fly.
No.
I mean, it is, but what's different about it, Kate?
You're casting kind of like, you want those, you want to hit it, you want those rings to come off of it when
You
it
want the
lands.
bomb.
Yeah. So I usually cast, you can cast a little bit up, you know, short, medium, long casts. So you're covering all the pools, or all the pool. And usually you count to 3, the 3 second, kind of like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. Once it starts skating, pick it up, cast it again. And you want to land it. There's like a box in front of the fish, an imaginary box, and that's kind of where you want to land it in order for the fish to take it. Yeah.
I think salmon like to be surprised.
I think they're annoyed.
Or hate to be surprised.
Yeah. So it's
an irritation.
if you drop a dry fly or even a wet fly, like in that little box that Kate's talking about, and it's in front of the fish, you'll know very quickly if there's a salmon there. You know, they're pretty keen. It's kind of like most of my salmon takes have been right away. Like as soon as a fly hits the water and starts to swing. I mean, there are exceptions. You catch them on the dangle, and it is important to cover all the water. But especially with a dry fly, like.
And I say don't, you know, let it skate, but sometimes they like that. You know, sometimes there's a little trigger when that fly starts to.
Kate, what's that special cast we have to make in order for it to bomb on that water?
Yeah, like I just cast like super high tip, stop it high so it kind of falls down, and you have a little bit of slack in your line, and you get that little bit of drift.
Right.
I actually pull it.
So you don't, you almost like pull it back.
So
and then it falls, and then you get that little bit of slack enough to have a little bit of a drift. You're not casting like tight line.
Okay, you almost say it.
It's the pull-out method.
I knew he was just like.
You wanted me to say that, dude, didn't you?
But it's good.
This is PG Gate podcast.
It's good because that way the bomber hits the water before the fly line too, which is essential. Yeah, and we don't scare any salmon in front of it.
Yeah,
which is great.
exactly.
Yeah. And if you do that well,
it's really fun. I love
very
swinging
fun.
flies, but you know, first of all, a dry fly take is like the best.
It's not. It's
for a salmon.
I have to imagine it's next level.
But also, it's like kind of interactive fishing a bomber.
Usually,
you know, it's not just casting and just mindlessly swinging. You're like you're like methodically covering the pool. Like, oh, that looks like a salmon would hold there. I'm gonna put one there, put one there, put one there. Like,
where do salmon hold?
Well,
like comparatively, let's say, like if you were to compare to reading trout water, because they live in the same place. There's tons of brookies here, by the way.
You don't really catch brookies and salmon in the same. You do kind of. They do share water. Like you'll see them, but
salmon, like, I feel like salmon don't like to work hard, so they like to lie, you know, just to the, you know, inside of a seam or outside of a seam. They really like tail outs. In low water, they're up closer. In the fast water and high water, they like lying in tail outs.
they like structure.
They like structure. And that's one of the things.
They need to conserve their energy.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the things, like, getting to know the Margaree, like, we know where every little
You're still learning. Yeah, you learn.
Yeah, you kind of learn where the taking spot is in each pool, in different water levels, and yeah.
The best tip I was ever given, and I kind of dissect a salmon river with this method, is salmon like water that's moving at about the average walking pace of a human being. So you try and dissect a river, and you're looking at all this structure and the seams and all these like little currents, and you try and find. Usually it's where there's foam too. You can kind of see the foam lines and stuff like that. Foam is home. It is too for salmon in some degree, but yeah, you try and find that water that is just when you see it and you start to have success fishing it, it jumps out to you instantly. But it's like, yeah, just those little pockets or seams that are just moving at like a walking pace. That's salmon water.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's a good way to remember it.
Yeah,
That's a good way to
easy.
remember it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we spent the morning doing that, learning, like getting that morning. I feel was like it's all about getting dialed. Like you know, there was stuff in my bag where I wanted to be. There was the stuff that I had in my waders that I needed to be. Can I find my lighter when I need a cigarette? Is like, am I casting right? Is my leader the right length? Is my knots the right? It's like I felt like that was a really good morning to just be like, okay, we're here. I'm relaxed. I feel like all my gear is what I want it to be doing. I'm kind of starting to like get into the
routine.
mindset of like fishing because, like I said, it is very methodical with the bomber, and of course with the spay rod too. You know, it's like you really do get into that flow state of like cast, take 2 steps down. If you're using a bomber, it's like a short cast, a medium cast, a long cast, 2 steps down, and you're counting 3 like it's a 3 to 5 second drift. I was using 3 second drift mainly. So it's like, yeah, you really get into, you like check out and check in at the same time because you're just like in that flow state. It's awesome. You're just like,
Oh, you're focused.
yeah, you're focused, you know, and then like in the back of your head, you're like, oh shit, like if something hits, it's going to be the craziest thing ever.
And then sometimes we'd get scared when a brookie would hit it.
And we're like, don't trout set. Don't trout set.
Yeah. Do not trout set on a
bomber.
salmon. That's
They'll
for
hook themselves. They can usually come up and take it. So dry fly is the hardest thing because you can usually see the take. And the worst thing you can do is trout set. You just pull the fly away from them. They'll usually take it, turn, and go back downstream. So same with swinging a wet. And I know steelhead, anglers probably do the same thing, but it's more just like a rod lift than like a hook set. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then insanity ensues.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Kate had the day before, 2 days before,
Yes.
had grabbed a salmon on a bomber, right?
Yeah, we were up. We've been salmon bums here for the last couple weeks, but
Yeah.
we had some good dry fly takes before
sick.
you guys arrived.
So sick.
And it was close to shore. So that's the other thing too. Like for anyone listening that wants to go salmon fishing, do not get in the water if you don't have
Yes.
to.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're not in deep water. That's the other thing. So, if you can stay out of the water as much as possible, that's what you should do because sometimes you might be standing where they'll lie.
Right.
Yeah.
Or just talk to someone. Like usually, that's the best way to approach a new water is, assume that you probably shouldn't be waist deep in it until someone who fishes it all the time tells you that, they only hold on the far bank behind a particular rock.
Right.
But like Kate's fish was super cool. Like, I don't know if she even had her leader out. Like she was standing on dry ground, just flicking a bomber. Like, her fly line was still spooled on a reel, basically. They just came up and just like sipped it like a trout. And it was,
That's wild.
Oh.
And it was like what, like a 12-pound salmon?
yeah, 12, 13 pound fish.
Yeah.
It was cool. Super silver, like blindingly silver. They're hard to take pictures of because, everything's
so exposed.
they're like blown out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
There's nothing like a June Margaree fish.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay, and that was the morning. Every day is going to be kind of the same. We wake up and go fishing.
Yeah.
But today was special because at the middle of the day we went to the salmon ceremony,
Yes.
which is an annual Mi'kmaq tradition. It was held at the hatchery, which is on the Middle River.
No, it's on the Margaree. It's at the hatchery pool on the Margaree River, and the hatchery is actually run by Fish Nova Scotia, or the Nova Scotia Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture. So, and it's not a hatchery in the traditional sense. It's all native fish. They go back in. They just kind of rear them, collect broodstock. It's very
Yeah. If you listen to the Sarah Penny episode, she outlines how they do that. So actually, we've had a lot of Nova Scotia episodes.
Yeah, we have.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. We'll put them all in the show notes
Yeah.
so that people can refer to them because it is pretty cool because Sarah does a deep dive in how those hatcheries work, and that's rad. The hatchery's beautiful. It's a cool place. It's been around since, what was it, 1902?
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
1802?
1902.
1902?
Yeah, I remember that.
So some old buildings and that have been, kept, and it was great. And yeah, it was cool. Like the salmon ceremony honors the return of the salmon, and of course their
Cultural significance to the Mi'kmaq.
exactly, and their journey upstream. And we all took part in smudging,
Yeah.
which was cool. There's a lot of people there.
There's a ton of
There's a
people.
ton.
And
of
Sarah
people.
Penny was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was cool. We're like, hey, I know you from a podcast. And that was cool. We got to chat with her, and we got to meet a lot of people from the community, which was really rad. And I feel like we got good juju because of that
I do too.
smudging, I think.
the coolest part, I've always thought this about when it comes to, like, Kate and I live and breathe salmon fishing.
That's pretty obvious at this point.
I know. But it's cool. It's like definitely like an eye opener when you hear, Mi'kmaq discuss salmon in such a different way. Like, it doesn't matter how much I connect with salmon. Like, my existence never depended on their return. And I think it's important to keep that in check. Like it's so much more important to them culturally than it will ever be to, wreck anglers.
Right.
It's important to keep that in check.
Good
Which is
point.
cool.
That is cool. So that was really fun. Like I thought it was really fun.
Yeah.
And then the day went as every other day went, which was like wake up, do something around lunchtime, take a salmon siesta.
Yeah, sleepy salmon.
We were a bunch of sleepy salmons, so we all had a nap, even Finn. And then we got back on the water. And Scott, what happened?
I hooked a fish.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, you did.
Yep.
Yep.
It's witching hour.
Yep.
Salmon don't like bright sun. So like you can pound water all day. You're not really, I'm not going to say you're not going to catch a fish, but you're going to burn out pretty quick. So,
especially this time of year where it doesn't get dark till late, and
they like that color change.
you need to take that little break in between and then, fish the prime times.
Less
morning
is more.
and evening.
Yeah.
Less is more.
It was wicked because you were like, "Yep, I'm on," and and then you're right, chaos ensues. And normally, I'm told anyway, although I haven't experienced this, that Finn doesn't usually care about the salmon, but Kate's grabbing the net, running in the water. Scott's tearing up and down the pool, chasing the fish around because, as we've all learned, you don't want to plant your feet when you hook a salmon, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Move your feet.
Move.
Yeah.
It really
Parallel.
is. Yeah, you got to play the fish. Like you can't just stand there and let
Watch
your
it
reel
rip line.
Yeah, you'll lose it every time. So you kind of look foolish. I felt foolish the first time I started, kind of walking with the salmon. But you want to keep side pressure on them and kind of move laterally with them. Most of the fish I lose is when they take off downriver and I just stand there and, that hook is going to move and just usually pops. Or
they'll break off on something you can't see.
they're clever.
Like,
They go right for things that,
Rocks,
you can actually feel them sometimes. They'll go to the bottom and you can feel them like rubbing, their face on the bottom or something like
That's
that.
so cool.
Yeah.
They're
not stupid.
They're not stupid.
So Scott's sprinting around. Yilma's like, "Oh my god, he's never seen an Atlantic salmon before."
I got a GoPro and a cell phone.
I think Finn was
both hands.
feeding off our energy.
Yeah, he's like, "Wow, wow, wow." he's like chasing the salmon around. Kate's like, "Finn, get the fuck out of here!" And then at one point, it was just like Finn was in the way and all this other stuff, and Kate's like, "Screw the net," and tailed the fish, and we landed it.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful fish, bright.
Yeah.
It was perfect. There wasn't a mark on it. It was pretty
It
cool
was
fish.
gorgeous. Yeah.
And the cool thing too, this just goes back to like being friendly with people on the river. Like I hooked that fish more or less in the exact same spot Kate got her fish. Like there is certain structure on the river that salmon will find, and as long as that river doesn't change, like year in year, you'll find salmon holding on the same rock or the same like stump. So you can save yourself a lot of trouble. It's not mandatory to have a guide in Nova Scotia. Fish Nova Scotia has an incredible website where you can actually click on the region you're planning to visit. So, you might not be coming here to salmon fish, but if you are, you can click on Cape Breton. There's a list of Nova Scotia or Fish Nova Scotia endorsed guides. And even spending a day with a guide on a river like the Margaree will pay dividends in the long run. You'll be able to learn what flies work, where the fish hold, how to access the pools.
The etiquette.
I highly recommend that because you can save yourself a lot of time. There's a lot of chasing your tail you can do, and
I don't like that. I don't like that.
it's fun
I've
too.
done
Some
that.
people like that. DIY trips are super fun, but
This can be DIY.
This can
It can
be
still be DIY if you hire a guide.
you go for a half day.
Exactly.
Half day, full day, and then it sets up your trip for you're better for it.
100%.
Yeah, so that was cool. That was day one. We landed a salmon on the first day, which I was like, okay.
Okay, it's on.
And
And it
Yilma
was.
saw his first salmon, and he was like, "Whoa, I get it."
That's what
Yeah.
I'm fishing for.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I got it, but I got it even more
yeah.
next couple of days. But
Yeah.
we'll talk about that later.
So day two, again, early wake up call. We actually got to the pool. We'd fished for a bit, and then the Susans showed up again, which was cool. It was really fun chatting with them.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna lie, they're really nice people.
Yeah.
Smart.
Susan and Susie. I shouldn't say the Susans. Susie and Susan.
Yeah.
It's just, kind of close together. And actually, Mitchell hooked a fish that morning.
Yeah.
And case in point.
They didn't move.
And that fish broke them off, unfortunately. But it did jump twice.
Yep.
And Yilma got it on camera.
Oh, yeah. Slow-mo, baby.
It jumped, broke them off. It jumped, broke them off. And then it jumped again to this big fuck you as it was landing back in the
That
pool.
was totally a fuck you. So check this out. So what you were saying about how smart Scott I'm talking to, how smart the salmon is. Well, I'm talking to both. But so they didn't move. The salmon went down, rubbed against a rock, and broke off.
Yeah, the leader was a braised.
The leader was. What's it called? Not braised.
I braised. I would
braised?
say that.
Frayed?
Frayed. The leader was frayed.
Braised.
Braised.
Braised. Yeah, braised in barbecue sauce.
Mitchell will love that joke. Case in point, you need to be parallel with that salmon and follow it.
You need to be tight too.
And tight.
I think the thing is, it's like,
Pressure.
you see a lot of videos of real screaming and stuff. And it's not saying that they don't do that, but, obviously some of it is for show. And I'm not just talking about Instagram. I'm talking about, like, even like videos in years past. Like, I grew up, again, as I mention this all the time, grew up in Ottawa. The fly shop wasn't very busy. As you can imagine, not as many fly anglers back then as there are now. I was 16. I'm 37 now. But it was busy during salmon time because I was in Ottawa and all the politicians went. And, they would tell me these stories of, like, the reel was screaming and the fish was jumping downriver and it got off. And I'm like, wow, crazy. Because, I didn't know any better. And then, like, the more you fight fish, even the big browns and the credit, if you're not moving, they're going to, they have the advantage. And so you have to, it's not like this hopeless thing where, like, wow, I hope I can land this thing. It's like, no, I have to actually try to land this thing. You have to get that in your head.
It's a game of angles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twice.
Is that why they call us anglers? Oh. No, they call us angles because, do you know where?
I don't know. I buy that though.
No.
Let's just say it's that.
We'll say it's that, but what it actually is it was to delineate the difference between someone who fished with a net and somebody who fished with a hook.
Oh, cool.
Because they would call it an angled, like an angled hook or something. I can't remember the second
Tool.
word. An angled tool. Yeah, that's where angler comes from.
Yeah. But it's true. Like I would say in terms of presenting a fly too, it's, all you're doing is picking an angle, and that angle determines how fast your fly is going to come across the current. And salmon, depending on the size of your fly.
What is it that our friends say, Greg?
Angle of the dangle.
The angle of the dangle.
But it's true. Like
the angle of the dangle.
Again, a little tip for people that might want to go salmon fishing. The bigger the fly, the faster it has to move. The smaller the fly, it's just natural. Small things move a little bit slower. So, if you cast more straight across a river, the downstream mend, your fly's going to rip across. Versus if you do, an aerial mend. I don't like mending salmon flies. I think mending is... Topher Brown actually says this, that mending has saved a lot of salmon, and it's true. It's the most unnatural friggin' thing you can do to a salmon fly. You see people do these big upstream auto mends, and you're just like, well, there's, at least a quarter of your swing. And we were talking about most salmon take the fly, usually, the first couple of feet. So you want to do a nice
That's
cast.
one of the most important things, I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
There you go.
But is the speed of your fly,
Yeah.
for salmon fishing.
Yeah.
Like a small fly.
Yeah, slow.
You want it to move a little slower. Big fly, you kind of need it to be moving quicker. So if I'm casting a larger fly, I cast more, maybe 90, let it rip across.
Wicked.
Small fly.
I saw that happen.
I think I liked learning from you too because I felt like we were fishing. It didn't feel like, and you know what? I was lucky enough to go with Rob from Drift Outfitters the first time salmon fishing, and that felt like fishing.
Yeah.
I felt like, again, to refer to my politician buddies when I was 16, it felt like they were just like casting a line and just praying.
Hoping and dreaming.
You hoping and dreaming.
Yeah.
I felt like we were fishing. We were like moving flies, changing, like you said, the angle of the dangle. Especially when you're bobber fishing, you really feel like you're fishing because you're like this spot, that spot, 3 seconds, lift. Keep going through. And yes, nobody knows why an Atlantic takes a salmon fly, but there is a certain presentation that could stack an odd in your favor for them to do it.
Just always be thinking of what the fly is doing in the water.
Turn your leader over. That's the biggest thing. Like I see people cast, and even pretty cast with your fly line. make sure your leader's straight when it hits the water. That's the biggest piece of advice I can give you.
Yes.
You know, you want everything salmon
And check your leader for wind knots.
check your leader, check your
check
hook.
every time. Yeah.
If
You know,
if you got a weird layout and you think you might have a wind knot, just check it. These
Yeah.
fish are too strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, just make sure everything is you're fishing with purpose. That's kind of how that's the mantra, and that's kind of Kate and I have been fortunate to have a lot of really great teachers. You know, we definitely didn't figure out all this stuff by ourselves. Some of it we did just trial and error, but you hit the nail on the head. You are fishing for salmon, and they don't take, but there are certain things that they like. And you know, you're just stacking the odds a little more in your favor. It's still a losing proposition mostly at the end of the day, but yeah, there's certain things you can do that will entice a take. So
Yeah.
It's like baseball. You know, the best hitters still only hit it 3 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
But it's 3 salmon.
and fish a lot of different water. People get like lead foot too when it comes to like pools. But time and time again, I've seen salmon. You get kind of 2 chances at a fish. It'll look at a fly, and usually the first time, if it likes whatever it is, either it's a dry fly or wet,
Yep.
you'll get some sort of reaction out of them. The second time you present it, a little less. Third time, they almost become numb. So, you know, you might see a pool stacked full of fish. It absolutely does not mean that you will hook one of those fish. You know, put a couple passes in and move on. You know, cover as much water as you possibly can.
Yeah. So that was the morning. That lunch, we went to the Dancing Goat. It was very, very, very tasty. Yum and I had porridge bread for the first time.
We should go after this podcast.
Yeah, we can
We
definitely
will.
go after this podcast for lunch.
Oh my god.
Ugh.
Sorry.
And
can
then
edit
we
that out.
we had our salmon siesta. We got back on the water, and you know, I think Scott, you got broken off. We rose a few fish. I had that grab pretty much at the end of the day, but that was it. That day was
We
Mitchell's
had
fish.
we had some rises and
I broke off a whale as a
Action.
fish.
yeah.
I had no business landing it. I was fishing, again, just structure in a river, and it was either snag or break off. It just looked fishy. I don't know.
And there was a fish there,
There was a
Yeah.
fish there.
Yeah.
but it was a
and-
log jam.
It was a log jam. Anyways,
Yep.
What can you do?
nothing.
What's gonna do?
Day 3, the program ensues, except for we had a special morning because we're all sitting around. We got up nice and early. We were sitting and everyone was relaxing. I don't even think Kate had socks on. We're sipping coffee and I'm doing my stories. And then Scott, it's like, 20 to 6. And again, I didn't need to mention, we are very close to the river at this Airbnb. And Scott's like, we should probably think about getting going. And then he was like, we gotta go. Everything started, it was just like pure panic. Kate's like, what are we doing? We're blowing it. I was like on the couch, like posting our stories. And I was like, I was up 45 minutes ago. I was like, you don't even have socks on. And we were like, it was hilarious. And we gotta go. And then, so we went. We fished the morning and nothing really happened, which was totally fine. Yeah, the past 2 days were mainly overcast. Today we started getting
Sunny.
Sun.
That was the day of our big walk. We parked a car at one pool and left one at the hatchery, and we walked. Oh, actually, we got to fish with Andrew from Fish Nova Scotia.
That's
that day.
true.
That was super fun.
It was
Yeah.
super fun.
And Andrew's, there's an Ontario connection there. He's from Ontario, and we were talking about not just here, but also, he talked about he was part of a fly fishing club in his younger days, and they would drive from Pickering to the Grand River to fish
Yes.
for browns, which
Yeah.
it's kind of cool, like there's all these little connections you make from the places you fish at home, which I thought was interesting. And then we just kept walking down. We saw some fish showing. We didn't grab anything, and then we got to the hatchery pool, and we fished it. And again, we didn't grab anything. But when you walk out at the hatchery, you get to see all the brookies holding at the hatchery. There's a huge. The river goes right by the property, and it's a high bank, and you get to see all the little brook. They're not little. You get to see the big brookies holding in the current, and that was cool. We're like, whoa. And then we
Healthy river.
we saw we were at the hatchery doing some filming for Andrew, and they were transferring a brook trout from one pool to another to make room for salmon, and we saw them moving the fish down a trout slide, which was very hilarious. So that was fun. We had our salmon siesta, and then we got back on the water to the pool right close to the house.
And what happened?
I actually tied on Mitchell's Blue Charm. It was a skinny, very narrow part of the river. Actually reminds me
Fast
a lot.
water.
Really fast water. It was kind of that witching hour. Tons of mayflies and stoneflies coming up. Of course, not the salmon eat them, but we were watching. The river was coming alive.
Yeah.
It's that time of the night. Everybody knows that time. Indigo sunset and
Yep.
mayflies and trout snouts. Was that Finn? and then I got the biggest grab of my life. I've been lucky enough to hook land Atlantic salmon for steelhead, et cetera, Great Lake steelhead. Actually, one West Coast steelhead too. This thing almost ripped the rod out of my hand.
Yeah.
It was like the craziest grab, and probably to your point, 25 feet away from me, like really close.
Yeah.
And yeah, I instantly had that thing in my head. Like Kate was like, and Kate was playing in my mind. I was just like, get moving. I was like reeling up, running down the river and trying not to fall in. And it was this very strong fish. And there was like this, I could see this big rock ledge that I was trying to keep it away from.
It feels that much stronger too when it's in the current like that.
Yeah. Oh,
Even more.
it was wild. And I was like, just like stressing not to have my leader up against this rock ledge. And, then Kate came in and landed the fish like she did for Scott. And
She's good.
yeah.
Just everybody's
You're
net
good.
girl.
It's a very important role.
Yeah.
And now
Extremely
all of a
important.
sudden I'm holding my first Margaree salmon.
Yeah.
And it was like,
Huge.
I was freaking out.
It was beautiful. It had like a purple strip.
You know what? It's really cool because like instantly, like obviously the fish I've seen, fortunate enough to see a lot of salmon, and I love the fish, but it's crazy to see the facial expression that everyone gets when they see a fish. To me, like that's just like, wow. Like I know especially they are,
Yeah.
but to see that kind of come across someone else's face, like for the,
I
I know
get-
you've hooked salmon before, but you did say that this is one of the bigger fish you've hooked.
This is my personal best Atlantic. And we were fishing the Bonaventure in the fall, which beautiful colored up fish, they're getting ready to do their thing. But this was a really bright,
Yeah, dime.
bright, fresh fish. And I was just like looking at it.
I get
like,
really
like,
excited. I think you get to a certain point in your fly fishing journey where you get as excited to see somebody else catch a fish
yeah.
Absolutely.
as you do yourself, especially
Definitely.
see someone get their first salmon.
Yeah,
It's
you
like
look-
getting your first salmon all over again.
Totally.
Really.
You look humbled. You were kind of like, when I looked at your face, you were just like satisfied. Was another word. And then just like the admiration you had for that fish. Like even in the photos, like, you did an incredible job playing the fish, and incredibly, fish handling is a really big thing. And like, I couldn't say anything but good things. I think it's really important when people do hook a fish.
There's a weird moment where I made out with it, but other than that.
Yeah, but I mean, you kept the head in the water, you kept the gills. If you are going to take a picture, like we had our cameras all ready, it was like a 1, 2, 3. We communicate, lift. You want to see those water drops coming off a fish, and
then back in.
Yeah, and
Upstream,
to live
point
another
them
day.
upstream.
Yep.
Yeah.
it
It happens so fast.
You feel them get their energy back in your hands, and I think that's really cool too, because you can
100%.
feel the energy of like a life spent swimming in an ocean and above. Like that's that energy, you're like
Totally.
you're like, this is the energy of a fish
Yeah.
that has swam away from a shark,
Yeah.
or a whale, or up a waterfall.
Come from Greenland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and then it kicked off, and I was like, wow, awesome. And that was that day. That was really great. Went home, fell asleep, got our delirious 4.5 hours of sleep, woke up in the morning. Everyone was freaking out again. Gotta get ready, gotta get going.
The ball busting.
The ball busting in the morning. And packed our snacks.
It was a
Hit
sunny day.
Hit the road, very sunny day. Starting to get really hot.
Yeah.
We were keeping an eye on temps every day, and we kept going upriver to find colder and colder water. We were, you want to kind of stop fishing. I think, Kate, you said your cutoff was about 18 degrees.
Once it starts to hit 18, I get a little,
Squirrely.
squirrely.
18 degrees and there's I won't take pictures of fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're gonna fish for trout and salmon, you gotta fight them fast. You put on a little bit heavier leader. I know they say the same thing if you follow keep fish wet. There's great resources out there on how to the threshold. But yeah, salmon build up salmon and trout build up lactic acid when you're playing them and fighting them, and the only way they can recover from that is cold. Yeah,
Fine cold water.
Yeah.
sub 20 degree water. So
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We went up. We found nice, cool 16-degree water.
Yeah.
Well, Yilma, what happened?
Oh shit! So
You already forgot.
no, I remembered. That was just first. So just set the tone real quick. Aldo's been fishing with me, fly fishing with me the whole time. I've learned, since 7 years now, and
I was there for his birth.
Yeah, he was there for my fly fishing birth, and I have a brand, and my brand is when it's the first time I'm fishing for a species. I catch them, but I catch a smaller version of it, but that's okay because I work my butt off until I am rewarded, and it's just my brand. It's just how I fish, and this is what happens. So, I started casting, and I can hear Scott and all. Do the figure eight, make sure it's moving, keep that leader tight. As soon as the fly lands, and it's the Undertaker, by the way, it's my new favorite Atlantic salmon fly. As soon as it lands, make sure that leader's straight, 45 degree, water's moving slow in that run, figure eight. And as soon as I did that, exactly what I was told, I felt a giant tug. I almost thought it was a snag, but then all of a sudden the head shook. I had shook a couple times. And I had on. And then as soon as I had it on, I heard screaming, "Keep that line tight!"
I'm a street driver.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
No, you're a good guy.
Yeah, it's a very good guy. Because I would have, but would I? Right? So I appreciate you.
Gotta,
most people don't. You get like deer in the headlights.
Oh,
You're
big
like
time.
you've been trying so hard to catch this fish, and when
Yeah.
it
Oh
happens,
my God, it
you're just
actually
like,
happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
you freeze.
Exactly. Go ahead, Aldo. What are you saying?
No, keep
Got
going.
your hand up. Yeah, no.
No, sorry, I was just stretching.
And then the first thing that hit my head, as soon as Kate was like, "Keep that line tight," I followed that fish. I ran. I was not flat-footed. I made sure I was parallel with that fish. I kept the line tight. It ran a few times, which was amazing because that reel was like, I'm like, whoa. And the amazing netminder, Kate, netted the fish.
Kate kept all her fish safe.
And it was my first grills. And I'm very...
Yeah.
I'm very happy you
Grills is
said grills, not a
juvenile-
grouse.
yeah. A salmon that has been at sea for 1 year.
One
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. 1 winter.
Yeah, explain the difference.
Yeah.
63 centimeters.
Yeah.
So it's a salmon, a young salmon that has spent one winter at sea, left as a smolt, and come back, and it's a fish that's under 63 centimeters.
And no less loved.
No, they're cool.
I love the
and,
grills.
and grills are usually psychotic. Like
I know, that was a weird thing. Like, I caught a grilse on the Bonnie, and everyone else I saw catching grilse, normally, like, grilse go super insane, and this one didn't, and that was cool. But, like you said, grilse are no less loved, and...
even watching them in the pool, like we were watching, and they're neurotic.
Yeah.
Like you see a grilse rise, and you're like, oh, I'm going to cast that spot. And it's funny, I was watching the fish in that pool, and like they would rise, and then like a shotgun, they'd take like a 90-degree left turn and go somewhere completely different. Mm-hmm. They're just throwing curveballs.
Yeah, which is super cool, and that was awesome. We, Yilma got his first fish. We spent the rest of the day fishing, but nothing else happened that day. And
No.
you know what? The last day too, which was yesterday, nothing happened. But we fished all day and did our regular thing. We had our dancing goat lunch. We did do one special thing, which is we went to the Salmon Museum.
That's true.
Yeah, that was special.
It was special.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool place, and
It's
the
so
lady was
cool.
so nice.
Oh, and funny.
Yeah,
Great
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
we got to I learned something.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they spawn for it's not just like a day.
No.
They spend a week
Building reds.
building reds and actually spawning, which was pretty wild.
And I learned something.
What?
The average survival rate of the eggs
Was it 8,000 eggs
to 2. Yeah.
and
Isn't that
two
crazy?
and
Two
two
survive.
and two survive to return to sexual maturity?
And
Yes.
spawn.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're special fish.
Yeah. So I felt chosen.
That's why it's so important to like do your part and just like look after the fish when they're in the river. Like, don't be a jackass. Like, keep the fish in the water, and you know.
And I will say, Kate, this whole time of, and Scott too, feeling like your respect for the fish and how much you love it here. But yeah, we left that museum kind of emotional, and the respect you have for the fish, Kate, is just like, it's inspiring.
They're so special, and they're just the most, in my opinion, the most incredible species of fish. And I do get emotional about them and this place, especially in Margaree, because there's just so much history and just the things the fish have seen and been through, and just
it's such a romantic
incredible
place.
It's romantic, and they're just so special.
I was going to say on that note too, like, they are super special, and there are things that we can all do to make sure that salmon stay in our rivers and that future generations can kind of experience how awesome they are. And the first one I would say is, there's a lot of great organizations. Even if you haven't been to Nova Scotia salmon fishing, but you might want to, jump online or, head over to Instagram and follow the Nova Scotia Salmon Association.
It's free to join.
And they do incredible work from, doing catchment liming with helicopters to make sure that, acid rain is being, mitigated is really cool. River restoration, our home river, the LaHave, Nova Scotia Salmon Association has been paramount in helping us kind of recover some of our last remaining wild Atlantic salmon.
There is hope, though. Like we were chatting last night, the returns are up.
And there's really smart people. I mean, I feel like they fluctuate, up and down, but like it seems like the last couple of years there has been a lot more fish returning. And
the 5-year average,
Yeah. And I think that's super. I have to remain optimistic because I think being pessimistic doesn't do the fish any good.
Doesn't change anything.
Yeah, it just makes me want to fight harder. But even inland fisheries, like, their mandate is not Atlantic salmon, but they care so deeply about the fish, and there's a lot. If you live in Ontario, BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Northwest Territories, I don't know. Hop online, join the Nova Scotia Salmon Association.
Okay. There's every province.
Get involved, because there's stuff you can do, and
or just follow along. They're just an amazing fish to. Yeah,
they're a symbol of, tenacity.
They are,
and they're
survival.
Inspired.
They're badass. They're so badass.
They're so badass.
We also
let's jump up waterfalls.
Yeah, avoiding seals, sharks,
and
whales.
Then spawn, and then survive, and then
also dodge.
Maybe
Kate.
Come back and do it again.
And dodge Kate.
And dodge Kate. It's unfortunate. If we do rose and a thorn, it's hard for me to say my rose isn't catching that fish. It's wild. Again, going back to our politician friends, I've heard many people do years and years of salmon fishing without catching anything, and here I've been on 2 trips and have caught fish on both, so I feel extraordinarily lucky. Yeah. Kate, I know you hook land a lot of salmon a year. In fact, even last week. This is my only thorn would be not seeing you land one of the fish you love so much, but it was an awesome.
My goal was
awesome week
to get Yelma his first salmon.
Yeah, and technically you landed all of our fish.
Yeah. I don't need to, catch fish to enjoy it and see other people enjoy it, and I had a really good week last week. So. Got it out of my system.
Yeah, I think it was a beautiful week, and we wrapped it up really well. Like, we had a nice sunset last night, and it was just a special week. Like, we had, I don't know, it was one of my tops. We get to go to a lot of places, and I hate doing that human thing, which is compare and contrast, but this is one of my top trips for me.
It's so easy to do too for people that.
Well, that's a good point.
Don't be scared. Like, Kate and I just got back from Quebec, and Quebec is awesome. We fished the Gaspé on the Bonaventure like you've done, and I mean that's accessible too. It costs a little bit more money. It's about $100 a day per person to fish. How much was your license as a non-resident?
Here for a 7-day license was $63.
It's got to be the cheapest place in the world to fish for Atlantic salmon,
and it's all public water.
It's all public water, which I think isn't there's pros and cons to that, but at the end of the day, the more people that care for salmon, I think
absolutely
nail on the head there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's always our goal, is to make salmon fishing seem approachable, because it is, and accessible for everyone. You don't have to go to a lodge, to experience.
No, and those are
Spend
great.
a lot, and that's great too. Don't get me wrong, I love doing that too. But
not having to
anyone
cook-
can fish for salmon. There's nothing,
Yeah.
And there's
it's not
amazing,
unattainable.
and there's amazing brook trout fishing here too. Like at
Oh,
the
yeah.
same time, like first day
yeah.
we saw Susie hook an absolute monster of a brook trout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one I caught was a nice sized brook.
Yeah.
I love
There's
that.
there's a lot to explore in the Margaree alone.
Yeah,
Like sea run trout, stripers.
yeah.
If I could
Browns.
spend a month here, it would be before salmon season, so I didn't get salmon brain, and I could enjoy trout fishing here because there's
Yeah.
a lot of fucking trout here,
Yeah.
which is cool. But yeah, I think that's really it. What a great week. I've
Yeah.
learned so much.
A lot. I learned so much.
so much.
Yeah.
And that's always my favorite part of the
Yeah.
trip. And it was awesome to see you guys. I mean, I think I mentioned this last night.
Meet some of our friend locals.
Oh,
Have a little barbecue.
Yeah,
tailgate.
right.
Oh God.
With the last night we had a little tailgate with your pals, which was super
I
fun.
was,
Yeah.
I was so.
You
I
were-
was,
you were
I was so
reluctant.
shocked. I was like, "What is? Wait a sec.
Yeah.
Humans are like this. Humans
They're
are
like
this
offering
nice?
you a burger. You're like, no.
No, I'm like, no. You're just kidding, right?
I was like, Yelma, I've never been a burger Yelma didn't want.
We have
I just
such
never-
a
it's
great.
been. Sorry.
I was just sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go-
We have such a great salmon fishing community in Nova Scotia, and it's like a camaraderie. It's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, so for those that like, just to shed some light on this situation, we saw two cars at a pool that we wanted to fish last night, and I recognized one of them, and we rolled up, and it was actually our friend Jason Sampson and Dan Muse, and Jason had his 12-year-old son out teaching him how to fly cast,
And their buddy.
and his buddy, and to me that was like pretty touching too, because that's the next generation of people who are gonna care for salmon. And yeah, we sat on the bench. I think we brought a couple cheeky pops with us and offered,
And at the end of the night, we
Jay-
had burgers.
tailgate party.
After walking through an enchanted forest of fireflies.
Yeah, it was
I
pretty
was like,
wild.
okay, this place is not real.
Yeah.
And
that. Yeah.
yeah, and that was really cool. It was a nice way to
Yeah.
wrap the whole thing up.
Yeah.
It was also nice, I think, Kate, you made the point, to not cook. Because we were getting home at like 11 after like every day. We were like eating dinner at like 11:30 and just trying to sleep at 12 so we could get up for 5.
Yeah.
It's a grind.
It's a grind, but it's a good one. The salmon siesta is key.
Yeah.
I would say my advice, salmon siesta.
Yeah.
They're not going to, it's hot in the middle of the day.
Less is more. Even when Kayla and Casey came here, they came in the fall, and Kayla actually hooked some fish as well, but Casey landed one, and it was on the day that we did the least. Like, we fished a little bit in the morning, and then we were just like,
We
I think it
didn't
was
grind it
the
out.
last day of their trip, and we went home and made bacon and eggs and just chilled and had coffee. And I swear to God, less is more when it comes to salmon fishing. You got to try, obviously, but if you obsess and do all that stuff, you're gonna burn out.
It's easy to obsess, though.
Yeah,
Very easy.
And I just wanted to say thank you to you guys
yeah,
for coming here and sharing. Like, this place is so special to us, and respecting the rules, etiquette,
embracing them.
treating everyone nice that you met on the river, and just being a great ambassador for the river.
And allowing us to be on your platform and talk about how special this place is. Like, you guys do a lot of really great work, and you deserve a pat in the back for sure.
Well, yeah, thanks for hosting us. I mean, you amazing guides and amazing friends. We met under a year ago, and we said we should do this, and then we did it. And I love when we do that, because if you take too long to do something, sometimes it doesn't happen. And so it happened, and it's awesome that it did. And we should casually mention that Mitch and Ethan were supposed to be here, but they couldn't because they both got sick on opposite coasts. And weren't able to travel. So a micro shout out to Mitchie and Ethan from Reddington, because they're supposed to be here and they weren't. So that would be my only.
We'll get them here.
We'll get them here. It's not, like we said, super easy to get here. So we'll be back for sure.
But we'll split up in teams.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Salmon Squad.
It is really hard. Like, again, I know this is dragging on, but groups in fishing, especially salmon fishing, is hard because you do rotate pools. So if you are planning to come, 3, max 4 people, pretty good. If you have more than that, just
Just treat it like saltwater fishing.
Yeah, split
There's
off.
only
split
three
up.
anglers. There's only three. There's 2 anglers in a
On
guide
boat.
per boat.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
You'll have a better time. You have a better chance of catching a fish. Everyone else at the pool is gonna have a better experience when you're not rocking up with a bunch of people. And yeah,
Well, I don't know. 6 of us and a big cooler full of beer is pretty.
if you
fun.
bring beer, you definitely got to pass.
But yeah, thanks again. And this has been a wicked week. And it's this show is going to come out July 15th. So I'm sure we'll be.
My birthday.
Ooh, right
Happy-
on.
happy
Woo.
birthday.
Happy birthday, Yilma. And this show is going to come out July 15th. I'm sure we're going to be posting a whole bunch of salmon content. Scott has been taking photos all week. So thanks for that, Scott.
Just a few.
Yeah.
And so you'll be
So
seeing a
many
lot of
photos.
his fantastic photography. I guess that's it. That's it for me, Aldo. Yilma?
Bye. This is Yilma. Bye.
Head over and follow Fish Nova Scotia to see the content too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Scott, did you want to sign off?
Fish Nova Scotia.
I'm just trying to plug as many people as I can think of.
Well, this is when you do it. It's the
I
sign
know.
off. It's the sign off.
Join Nova Scotia Salmon Association. Follow Fish Nova Scotia.
and come to Nova Scotia and have a good time and thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks,
Love
Scott.
you guys.
Love you.
Thanks, Atlantic Salmon. Wait, is this the button?
Oh, yeah.